September the 26th, 2023. Before we start this evening's agenda, I'd like us to observe a minute's silence in respect of the Councillor Alderman David Marshall, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next. Moving on to the agenda. Apologies for absence. We already have apologies for Councillor David Tully and Diane Rickaby. I've got apologies in Councillor John Macmillan as well.
I've got Katie and I've got Carl as well. And on this point, we need to request council
dispensation for non-tenants because we don't have.
Yeah.
We don't need to.
Councillor Bell, obviously, we know she's had ill health, and I'd request council to accept that she's requested to be excused for ill health for at least the next 6 months. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah. Declarations of interest. Have we any declarations of interest on any items on tonight's agenda? Yes. Coffee. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Oh, that's a long way away. Anyone else? That's no. There's announcements. Well, normally I don't have anything to say, but I just like just this time. I just like to say I want to thank James and all of the outlaw lads and everybody else who took part in it for an absolutely stunning win of a gold at the in the Northumbria Indoor. Like absolutely wonderful, and it's obvious that the amount of work that went into it, you can see around the area. You can all see going out into your, just into the pieces of spare land bits that have improved, and it really is lovely. So, would you please pass on the council's thanks to the lads?
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have to say for that. But I would like to welcome Daniel from the EAP and Paul. Yes, it is. Hi, Paul and Paul Rutherford from the Devon County Council, who are going to be speaking to us later or answering questions. Or okay. So now we move on to 5 leaders' statements and update to current business by the leader of the council.
Well, she's rather stolen.
Oh, sorry,
I'll take another one. Go on. Yes, you do.
Well, I've attended my very first local boards last week, and to say it was a wonderful event would just not be, giving it enough credit. It was just fantastic, and it just made me so proud to be part of Stanley, because Stanley, when he went through all of the different awards that have been forward, played a massive role in all of those, and I was just so proud to come from this area and see the beauty that was actually on show, and all of the different people that had actually that I was knew and was aware of, all the hard work that they did. Just absolutely amazing. So well done to every single one of those awards. But of course, special mention to Stanley Town Council and the environmental team and the neighbourhood wardens as well, who were always so hard to make it look absolutely gorgeous. So thank you again. Just the next bit of what Joey does.
Yeah. And when you consider that they were up against huge corporations like that, Harrogate, places like that, and then, you know, no, not Harrogate, that wasn't what I meant.
No,
Hexham,
Hexham,
places
yeah.
like that, the big towns, the ones with lots of money to spend, you know, they did really well. So it's good. Thank you. Now move on to part 6, which is public participation. We have had a letter, which I had me hand a minute ago, now I haven't. You got it there, thank you, yeah. A letter from a lady and an email.
Yeah.
Now, there's both of them, yeah, they're both of them regarding the civic hall. It's really, we need to be able to be give them a response that tells them something. And at this point in time, we really can't. So
Yeah, I think ultimately
Yeah.
for members is to be aware that obviously when we do get these letters that come in about the civic hall, I think we do need a kind of a standard response. And obviously it's just another example of why we really need to find out what is happening with the civic hall and continue to work with DCC for them to give us that answer. Because obviously we're in a kind of a limbo land at the minute, and it makes it very hard to respond to these letters and requests. And quite rightly, the members of the public should have a response. But obviously, as long as members are still happy with us explaining that position to anyone that writes in, that we can respond in that fashion. That's just,
That's about
yeah, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's basically that's all we can do for the time being, anyway. Okay. Right. On to item 7, which is confirmation of the minutes. And I have a proposal for confirmation of some board works. Right. Second for that. You. Thank you, Paul. Yes. Nobody said they didn't. Anyone?
Discussion about it, approved, is the first and second, yes. So clear.
Right. Oh. Right. I think it's you, Daniel.
Oh,
Item 8, Cuthbert's Cross Canfield Village.
thanks all again. Thanks everyone for having us tonight. A bit of background. I think a number of you will be sort of well up to speed about St Cuthbert's Cross and Seaton project I've been working on since pre-COVID. I don't like saying that, but yeah. So what we did was we got some funding from yourselves, funding from county councillors, Visit Durham and other sources, including the Area Action Partnership, following the publication of Jack Hare's book about St Cuthbert having a stopover in Tanfield Village on his route to his final resting place at Durham Cathedral. So everyone thought it was obviously a real big sort of accolade for the area, and we wanted to sort of obviously commemorate that in some way, shape or form. So we've come up with a St Cuthbert's Cross and Seaton project. We worked with a designer in Durham County Council who came up with a great design. It was sort of spoke to the members of the community. We had a consultation event in St Margaret's Village Hall, got the buy-in of the local residents, and then eventually applied for planning permission, and that came through, which was great. But there was a couple of conditions attached to that planning permission in relation to conditions that need to be met. One of them is to get Highways Assets to sign it off, and within that sign-off, they need to know who is going to take on the liability and the future maintenance of the cross and the seat. I've come up, hit a few barriers, and been told that Clean and Green and the Highways Department won't do that within Durham County Hall, or County Council, sorry. So I know that you've discussed it previous, was to come back tonight to ask you again if the Town Council would be willing to consider that if I work with James to come up with a bit of a budget line, should we say, in relation to maintenance that we could sort of have within that overall project budget. So it's not going to put the Town Council with a financial sort of, should we say, risk or loss. So we can build something in. So just to put it to you tonight, and you ask me any questions, I can let you know who I've spoke to, the sort of barriers that I've sort of encountered. Myself and James also had a meeting with Jack Hare, I think, didn't we, James?
We did indeed, yeah.
So we met with Jack, just to sort of allay his fears, because it has gone on for quite a time. And you know what I mean, we said to Jack, well, with COVID and everything else that sort of went on in that sort of time period, it's something that I want to see come to fruition. I think it's a great project, and it's something that I've sort of had my fingers burnt along the way with it. But we're committed to it, and I think the community's committed to it. I don't know what Helen may come in sort of from a Tanfield Village perspective. But again, I know that it seems to be a county council project, and I go through all the process, and I tend to come back to the town council, which I've in previous projects, and that's for you guys to take on the liability and the maintenance, which it is what it is. I can't get away from the fact that that's why I'm potentially here to put that to you again, to come up with a plan of action in relation to what we can do going forward, really.
Thanks, Dan. Right. Thoughts on it? I mean, it's one of these projects that it's took on life of its own. It's well on the way to being, feet on the ground, I think. So really, it's up to us to decide, really, if we're prepared to take on that liability yourself.
I think the main thing that I would ask, and I know I've spoken to both Daniel and James regarding it, this was never a Stanley Town Council project. It was a Durham County Council project, which Stanley said they would put some funding into. And I'm absolutely, actually, disgraced that DCC aren't invested in looking after it. And I think it's shambolic, to be fair, that they're actually coming and asking us to look after it, when it was never ever a project that was raised or instigated. It was a DCC, my understanding, project that was going to encompass various areas of Western Cuthbert being seen. It was going to include a walkway and everything. And whilst I think it's a fantastic idea and a fantastic addition to Tanfield and Stanley, I do think it's not really our responsibility. I don't think we, at the moment, with everything that's going on within the council, we don't know where our budgets are. We don't know what we're doing with the city. I think fair enough, it might be nice for us to take these type of things on, but without some proper direction and without some financial backing, I just think it's terrible that DCC have turned the back on it when it's their project.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yes, James?
Well, just coming there. I appreciate everything Helen said there. I think it is a good project, me personally. That's my thoughts. So I know Daniel has worked hard on it, and I know he had a lot of pressure on DCC to step up and say, look after this, but obviously can only do what he can do. Now, for me, if we do go ahead with this project, and we do support, there's a couple of things we need to do. If that is going to be the case, then we actually make sure that everyone out there in Stanley who is looking after it and who is creating it alongside the AAP, so it'll be AAP on the town council thing. Okay, that has to be made very, very clear. On the other side of things, if we are going to do it, then councils need to be aware we can't keep taking on these things without putting that on the budget line in our budget, say we're going to do it. Now, ultimately, we are a council about outdoor space and encouraging people to appreciate where we live, actually show off our heritage in blooms, and it all lends itself to that. So from an officer's point of view, I'm a fan of it and I see the benefits of it. But if we are going to go ahead, we need to actually ensure that if we're going to be doing a lot of financing behind this, then actually we PR that to make sure that everyone is very aware it's the town council doing this. Okay, that's my thought behind it. I know Daniel has put that pressure on, but we need to be clear on that. But we do need to start making some decisions, otherwise it is going to have to get fucked up. So,
can I ask Daniel, just
Yeah.
is there a timeline for, are they waiting for an answer? Because when our budget setting comes around, that will be the time when we'll be looking at actually putting some money aside.
Yeah.
To facilitate this.
No,
there's no
time scale. I got planning permission for it earlier this year. This said that works couldn't commence until we'd met the conditions within it.
Right.
One was a tree survey, which I can sort out and get that done. That's fine. it's the highway asset sign off in relation to if they're happy with where it's situated. But part of that is again the future maintenance and the liability of the actual sort of installation. So and I get what I fully understand where Helen's coming from. And I spoke to Clean and Green. They don't take on new sort of structures. I spoke to highways. Highways are supportive of the installation, but their highway budget stretched, and again they can't take on. So I think austerity cuts and everything else that's gone on. And it's not the only one that's sort of a bit of a bottleneck for us. There's others. Some Tanfield, then we're all over that. So yeah.
Jeanette?
I just wondered, do you have any idea what sort of costs that would entail and what sort of work they would need for the council and for the team?
I don't. I would work with James and tap into his expertise on that. It was going to be sandstone. Obviously the cross would be is sort of not fully intricate, but like obviously we know what the cross is like. They're quite sturdy structure in relation to the dimensions, which I've shared with James. So he knows the sort of.
I just wonder whether maybe work together and come up with some costs so that we can then maybe look at budget times of this. That's what, and I totally agree with what James is saying about the needs. It's no good just taking these things on willy nilly. It needs to have a specific budget.
Yeah.
But we have, I believe, done it. Did we do it for Heavyside? Did we maintain Heavyside?
Yeah, we've done and this is my point.
So sort of a set a precedent that we.
From an insurer's point of view, they come out give us a valuation on it as well. So obviously, if a vehicle did go into it or something, or hand comes out of the pub after a couple of weeks, then but it needs. We do need to be serious about it and actually, have to get the insurers out and ask them what they put on it. And from a maintenance point of view, then you need to jump out on things. If it gets chipped, we repair it straight away, so it doesn't get a bigger chip. Or do you know what I mean?
So I just think, I appreciate that you've come tonight and you're probably hoping for a decision, bless you. But I think until we get some facts and figures.
I don't think we can start trying to work out what we think it might look like. But remember, this isn't just for 1 year, this is on a yearly basis for a long period of time.
Yeah, and that has to be made clear in the figures.
Yes, just one other thing, and you might not know, Daniel. So is this now the stance of DCC going forward? And any new installations throughout the whole of DCC area, they will no longer, or is it just purely because we have a town council area? Is it something that
I'm
you
not
could
sure,
find out?
Helen. I'll definitely be able to find out.
Could find out.
Good question.
Because going forward, I'm sure in the whole of DCC, this would be the last installation that's ever put up, or even standing, or even standing, or whatever. So it's just, at least that way, as a council, if they can give us, and I don't know whether we are the people that need to speak to them, or whether it's something you could ask on our behalf and get some actual information regarding it. And then it also bears us in mind going forward if there's anything else happening.
I think I would go with that, and I would, if Olga or sort of the town council want to write a letter separately as well, that might give me a bit more of.
Yes.
DCC pushed that quite heavily.
Yeah, we did, which is.
Well, they're not willing to sort of chip into the grapevine, but then it was allowed off there somewhere because they certainly didn't get a lot of the project, and tourism, whatever it is, taking over the support. An area.
Well, that's obviously the point which I've made and I'm very sort of.
So.
Yes, Sandy was good.
I mean, I'll say it again, I think it still is very disappointing that the county are trying to adopt this policy of passing the buck on to groups like the town council for projects that they were initially interested in funding. And I might have picked this up wrong. Are they just asking us to fund the maintenance of it, or are they asking us to fund the actual installation as well?
No, there's the budget, the project budget set aside in relation to sort of the snow and the installation, everything's there, just for the future maintenance and liability.
That's right.
But again, as I mentioned to James, something that got quite a healthy budget. So it was something I would build in that budget maintenance line and working with James. We come up with a guesstimate. I think we spoke about roughly £1,500 a year if we set aside. you might not tap into that money every year, but you know you've got that there ready and sort of to pick up any, let's say, a misplaced stone or, you know, maybe a parking issue or something like that.
Just to follow up with that as well, I'm not saying we're going to, because as has already been said, I don't want to be just taking on these things without setting aside a budget, but if we were to agree to do maintenance on it, would there be any other way that yourself and AP could find other forms of funding to help us maintain it? Like if, say we took it on James's lads didn't work, but then other funding was available, so we weren't taking on the cost entirely, considering it was a project coming from the county.
Yeah, definitely we'll look at that.
Right. Okay, so basically that one, until we have more information about the costings.
So if we agree
To
with
come back.
Daniel, we kind of go
Yeah,
like that.
Can we agree on that? Sorry, did you want to come back to?
Just quickly, can we look after the one that we're putting in? Club D,
Yeah.
yeah, but that was our
That was ours,
instigation, that
that was
was us. That was nothing to do with council, that was us,
Mm.
and we maintained that,
Yeah.
I don't know, just.
Right. So can we have an agreement on that, they go back and get some sort of estimate as to.
I think there's a few different options there, Daniel, that we need to look at and
Yeah.
and try and work up, and bring it back to another council. Yeah, members are happy with that to be.
And to be included in, or to be put forward as a positive to vote in towards our budget setting. Yeah, okay. Everybody, yeah,
I think we don't need to lose sight that we need something on DCC to say that going forward throughout County Durham,
yes,
this is now being a precedence
yeah.
by anybody.
Well, perhaps the best people to ask with that would be county councillors, fellow county councillors in other areas, who may very well have had the same sort of thing, just to find out, we can get an idea. But I'd rather have that. I'd rather be told by an officer. Yes, I would rather be told by an officer.
I've spoken to various people, and
Yeah.
there are a couple of people down in Chesley Street that have had installations put in who have said county are looking after them. And I know there's a one in Consett that's been put in, the county are looking after. So I think we need something, and they're fairly recent ones, they're not old, in the last couple of years. So I would really like some proper directive.
Yeah. Right. No, leave that one on. With you, Dan. Oh, sorry, Sam.
Just further to what Helen was saying as well, depending on the response we do get back from DCC, I think we should also, as a town council, be putting a letter to say that we are disappointed that they aren't going to maintain projects they've started. And especially if it is just going to be in our area, we need to show that we're actually not happy with that.
Right, thanks very much. Right, has everyone had their say on that one? Is everybody okay with it?
Thanks for having us, really, and again, you contribute funding towards this project.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for me to keep you up to date with sort of developments and barriers and everything else, and work together in partnership for the benefit of Stanley. That's all right.
It just seems to have gone on for years and years and years, like being battled backwards and forwards. I think we really do have to get it nailed down before somebody decides that funding could be spent elsewhere. It takes it away. I know it's been ring fenced, but you know.
I think councillors are aware of the importance of these sort of things, but they're now becoming very aware of actually we've got to be very careful where we spend our money as well.
Yeah.
These for the future, because otherwise it can end up always falling on the town councils.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Just I don't want to stay with the
Are you? I don't know.
Do you want us to stay? Do you want us to go?
Well, I don't think we've got anything else to ask you, Daniel, so you can just tell. That's entirely up to you.
I'll stay until we get kicked out.
So you get better, right? Okay. Well, moving on to item number 9, local clock update, which is we've got the papers for that. Have you not? Oh, right. Yes, yeah. We're taking it down until we get to part B. I take it everyone has read this. No. Somebody not. What did I did get one. Did you not?
Johnny Mitchell to ask him.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah. I think it might be just as well. I'll just read it out to you. The local clocks report to full council 26th of September. Her directives were to move officers, lead negotiations on the closure of Civic Hall and associated costs and legalities, develop and produce an effective staffing structure, implement good governance through policies and procedures, which was what she was tasked with doing. And I think that self-evident, they're working through them. Everybody's working through them. The next item was a freedom of information request. It was a freedom of information request made by Councillor Tully with regards to the asset list. Despite numerous attempts to ask for more information regarding what exactly we are missing, we seem to be going round in circles with this. I know that the asset list we have as council marries for audit purposes. I've asked you all for help in identifying assets that we as a staff team may not be aware of, because we visited before their time. I advise you that you to have a discussion around this meeting and then guide the staff. This is not good use of staff time. So we need a resolution on this as to how we'll go forward with the business of the asset register. As just said on there, the one we have at the moment is the one that is audited. And as far as I'm concerned, an audited one is the definitive one. Right, yes, John?
I've already spoken to the town clerk on this and told her about some assets that are not on the register.
Did you? Well, that would be when she asked people for information.
That's right.
Right.
So those assets are still not on the register as we speak. But I have since sent another email and said that when I do get 5 minutes to sit down, I will try and write the rest of the things that I know
Right.
that are perhaps not the.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it stands to reason that people who have been on the council for a long time will have an idea, or could have an idea, of things that were there at work. And I think that's all she's asking for.
Yeah, I mean, we need, if anyone does know of anything that they think is not on it, then we kind of
Need to know.
rather than go through freedom of information.
Yeah.
Because that isn't good use officers' time.
Right. So, Helen?
I think obviously we're taking some of this into part B.
Yes.
Like,
But when we get to
It's just as I do, well, no, if it's just about assets,
Yeah.
I think we do need to look at that asset register as an asset manager for
yes.
many years.
Yeah.
We are not correctly using the asset register.
Right. Okay. That's just I mean, as I say, I just take it that when something is audited, it's included under the spec. But there again, yes.
Also, Dora and I had a meeting just last week and we were talking about this. And one of the things we talked about was the Chromebooks, for example, which aren't on the asset list. And I've alerted our to that, and she's checked that out to see how much they had to cost, etc. Because it's got to be over a certain amount of money, and yes, they are missing. So she's going to. Well, they're not missing because we've all got them. Yeah, so nothing from the list. Right. So she is going to update that list. So just like with everything else, I've said something, Joan said something. If anyone else knows anything that they are clear is not on that list because of the length of time they've served or just their awareness of what we have. And then I really seriously do feel that this is something that we should allow officers of Stanley Town Council and Durham County Council to get on with, to look at marrying those lists that they will have and that we will have, and make sure that the assets are sorted out to meet both parties' satisfaction.
So that we end up with a document that we can all rely on.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. Okay. So, if that's how, if people are now feeding information, or Joan, obviously the pair of you have fed information back, I think that probably that would be how we move forward on this, isn't it?
Yeah.
We get the information in, and it's we then end up with an asset list that we can,
Can we agree to all work together on this?
yeah.
And actually try and move forward and get the best possible outcome. If there are members that can provide us with expert professional advice, then we welcome that.
Yeah.
But if we need to work together on it, you know, we can only work with what we've got, but we can't go around the doors trying to deal with it. Otherwise, we will not get anywhere. So I think council need to agree that tonight. But actually, we are united on trying to get this sorted, and staff need to utilise their time to the best of their ability to get that done.
Right. Thank you for that. Yeah, John.
I think the resolution should be a time sensitive resolution. That
Right.
we are saying whatever the time, and perhaps that might fix our brains.
Yeah, well,
It might not
actually,
fix me time, but it might fix me brain.
yeah,
And that's, you know, I think we could
Yes.
be in December saying, or in January saying, and I think we need to think about the sensible timescale
Well-
for a resolution for councillors to come back to officers to complete the asset register.
well, in that case, then, what would you, I would suggest we don't leave it too long then, if we make it 6 weeks. So it would be October's, either before October's meeting, or, yes. No, it's before November.
You would agree the asset register
Yes,
at the
at-
October meeting.
Yeah, is that doable? I mean, as far as
Probably not,
November.
I'm being honest with you.
So November.
November,
He's been
Yeah.
honest.
right,
So I'll move a resolution that we have a time sensitive
Yeah.
asset register put together with the help of the councillors.
Yeah.
With the facilitation of the staff, at the November meeting.
yes, by the November meeting, yeah, okay, and we'll feed that one back to Diane.
I'll have a
You can do
second.
that. Well, you can, if you when you're back.
I'll
Yeah.
second that.
All right, thank you very much. Are we all agreed? Are we all, yeah, you all
I
agreed?
mean, all I would say to that, there needs to be a little caveat on that. There's only 3 officers here now. We know
Yeah.
our workloads. I need to check with other officers as well. If we can come back to you to say that obviously the motion that
Yeah,
Joe's put is doable, because I don't want to say here now 100% under my heart that we can do that. We need to be realistic on it.
yeah,
You know, if there is other priorities at the council that need to be addressed, then we have to address them first. But I agree with what Joe's saying in principle. If everyone's okay, that
Yes.
would as a caveat.
because I could see it running on until next year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we agreed about that. The next part of it is about the civic code update, regarding the handback. One of Diane's directives was to move offices, which is now complete. The team are settled into the greenhouse nicely. The office environment is so much better for all. Included in this directive, I am tasked to work with DCC in regards to the transition and handing back the civic code at the end of the notice period, and to gather information from council with regard to any potential closure costs. To try and gather this information, emailed to DCC portfolio holder senior officer, but I've had no responses yet. Because of the lack of any response from DCC, I have no option but to submit a freedom of information request for this information. And then that's the end of that. And as you're aware, we start budget preparation for 24-25, and this will prove very difficult to predict without this crucial information. Just awaiting the response from DCC for the Freedom of Information Act, but I will endeavour to put pressure on the officers of DCC in the meantime. Another item on the thing is the governance procedures and policies. Should be working on bringing the policies up to date, and the result is that
It's perfect, right, one.
it's that's for later on. So it should I've got a list of the policies she's worked on. Constitution Committee terms of reference, standing orders, financial reg, member officer protocol, communications policy, redundancy policy, and procedures. Look, there's 2 new ones in there, but I'm assuming that everyone's read them. And that is just, there's numerous policies to update as well as these ones. And basically we're just going to work through them. Okay. And that is the next part of that report is part B, so we will hang on to that. Yeah. Right. So we're having a good chew. Right. Events update, which is James.
Yeah, I'll be very, obviously, great news about, Northumbria Bloom. I think it's, right to say, broadly, how well other, organisations have done in relation to this as well. So it's been one big event. We've all done really, really well. So I, for one, am very proud of what we've achieved in Stanley, and long may it continue. Obviously, you'll be aware throughout some of the playing the parks. 5 out of 5 events completed. One had to be rescheduled due to the weather. That was the Oakleys Park one. The STC event team were present at all the events. They were really good attendance. When we during the events were good attendance, they carried out surveys, which have been really, really good. They 79 in total, I think, is that right, Anna? Or 79 responses. Anna and Alex are currently analysing that. But that's really good, actually. In 79 doesn't sound a lot, but actually, in terms of survey, it is quite a lot, and it's given us some really good information about events for the future. So they're doing a good bit of work on that to see how we can proceed in the future. Minus Sunday, it was a fair attendance. There was a few issues with some of the attractions. There was no Ferris wheel because of the high winds or the land trains that advertised. Banner parade led by the Craggy Corrie Band was well received. The town deputy mayor, councillors, Durham Miners Association, banner groups were in attendance, and we received thanks from Durham Miners Association. I think this is an event that, you know, it is a good event. We need to keep tweaking it, but we should be so proud of the heritage and keep doing that. The Louisa Memorial, STC and Durham Miners Association laid wreaths and flowers at the Louisa site. Tea and biscuits. It was a good opportunity for reflection and remembrance for those that died in the disaster. So yeah, so that's just a quick update on events.
Right. Well, events up to date.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Government's antisocial behaviour action plan. That's attachment C and D. We've got in here. Jeanette, do you want to say something about that? Yes.
Just presentation on the 20th of June from the PCC's Chief of Staff. And at that meeting it was discussed how our parish and town councils in County Durham could be involved. County Durham and Darlington are a pilot area for the plan, was funded in 23-24, which is a year ahead of most of the other parts of the country. There's a newly appointed policy and strategy officer looking after who is coordinating anything. We could be involved in 2 strands, the immediate justice strand and the hotspot strand. And so what would be worth thinking about getting involved at this early stage if the council has the appetite. So the ASB Trailblazer, which is attachment C, just takes you through you know, what has happened so far with regards to additional patrols that have been put into place through the funding that the PCC's had access to. And then on the back of that document, it talks about the immediate justice side of things, which is really the probation. And the PCC is very keen on doing some joint work with local authorities in the probation service, and very much being involved in the Bloom and which is the Northumbrian Bloom, and planting the bulbs in the hotspot areas. And I can actually testify to that one because the probation service worked with Anfield Plain Cricket Club and Green Crop and Anfield Plain Partnership on their Bloom award this year, and so they did a lot of the infrastructure type of things like painting and, you know, tidying things up, and that worked really, really well. So it's an element that I think would work really well with our environmental teams. So it's something to think about as a council, sorry. The anti-social behaviour plan, we can see that we have 3 areas in our Stanley area, which is hotspot 11, hotspot 18 and hotspot 21. And again, that's all about antisocial behaviour, and it pretty much covers quite a big chunk of the Stanley Town Council area. And they, I know that PCC's been looking at things such as quad bikes, which we know is a really difficult issue in our area, and wanting to work with us, and also CCTV upgrades across the whole of Stanley Town Council area. This is something that the AP has also been looking at through Town and Villages funding. So there's an opportunity there to, with regards to community safety, link those sets of funding up, and then Town Council got involved. So it's just to give everyone the information and to see what their thoughts are.
Right. Anyone's got any thoughts on that? I'll just say that before we go, where it says 2 dispersal notices down there, you can now add that up to 3 dispersal notices, because we've had one in Stanley all over the country. Sad, but nothing to do there to do. Anyone got anything? Anyone want to add anything to that? Are we, yes, John?
I have to say, you know, the weekend literally brought it home to people. And it didn't end on Sunday. It continued into Monday. There has to be something that will be a deterrent. There has to be. What that is for far cleverer people than me. But we perhaps need to be asking, I don't know, perhaps the police to come more often to our meetings, or, you know, dig up the subcommittee to have closer contact with the police in Stanley. But you know, we're just going into the darker night. I don't want a rerun of what we've had before.
Yeah. Every September it starts, runs for 3 months.
And obviously we are setting budgets shortly, but you know, is this something that when we're talking about our priorities, and I'm hoping that we can have like a budget workshop like we normally do to start, you know, looking at putting some meat on the bones basically of things that have been discussed here, where we might be able to use funding jointly and more effectively in the community safety area.
So should we say that item and we add that to the workshop?
Yeah. Okay, anyway, oh yes,
I think obviously, as Jeanette's saying there, I don't necessarily think money is always the key. And I do think the communication, I feel, I know we are town councillors, not county councillors, but I feel a lot of the communication between us and the police is non-existent. And quite often we don't know. I mean, I know a lot of us do attend PAC meetings and things like that, but between PAC meetings every 3 months is a long time. And a lot of the information that we do get is on Facebook and stuff like that, which might not always be the right information. And I think we probably could do, as Joan said, as Jeanette said, it's not just about money, and I know money might help them, but I do think we need a bit more of a joined up approach.
great communication.
Yes, I know it's not usual, but could I make a point on this?
Yes,
It may be relevant.
I have to, can you, yeah,
Discussions.
can you just wait until we've gone round here and then?
Okay, yeah.
So I pick up on what Helen's saying, because there's, you know, a small who sits in the DCC and the STC happen. We don't really get any more information as county councillors either. So I agree with what Helen said. You need to sort of liaise with the police more. We need more information, but I also agree with Jeanette, and I think that we need to look at this. And if there's anything that we can do in conjunction with what the PCC is offering, then we certainly will look at it.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. I think the response. Yes.
Yeah, I usually attend the PAC meetings for this area, and I think there was a general feeling at the last PAC meeting that we're not moving forward at all. We're getting the same complaints over and over, and nothing seems to be done about them. So I think closer relationships with the police would be good.
Okay, Oh, no, you weren't, I thought you were working, I thought that's what.
I mean, I do agree with what Mary's just said, with one caveat. With a lot of the packing meetings I've gone to, get the same complaints, and people do often say why nothing's being done, but then once police start to explain their process, you might not always agree with it, but there is, it seems, at least a reason behind it. And unfortunately, because of the way a lot of the services are, they're based on demand, which is not how antisocial behaviour and crime should be tackled, but they go where they have the most reports. And I think the best way would be tackle ASB and Stanton, because it is a problem, is, as already said, a joint approach. Even if it's not necessarily well funded, if we just have all the organisations involved, council, DCC, police, whoever it is, working together rather than us just not getting information.
I don't know whether they actually do share information to a great extent, or whether they're working in silos. If they're doing that, well, that's just totally counterproductive. That is question. Right, no, sorry, James.
Here. Since the end and I think that's because we didn't provide money for the police cars.
Yes, quite possibly, but
Just to touch on the sort of working together approach, it was a couple of years ago they did do a thing. It was when Dave Stewart was the inspector. I don't know, I'm not sure if he still is, but he still is, yeah. When they done that on that event, I say event, but on the front street where they were getting younger people into the civic, getting their parents called to come and pick them up.
that's
to get them off the street.
yeah, we've got them off the street. I don't know for how long is Jeanette.
And I hate to do this, Daniel.
Sorry, you said it now.
You know, we used to have a group, like a subgroup in the AAP, who actually sort of looked at all of this. And I'm just wondering whether, you know, there's an opportunity to have town councillors and resurrect that group and see if there's anything we could do to try and come together, because it just seems like an absolute nightmare out there at the moment.
Yeah.
As Joan rightly says, the darker nights are coming, and you just, you know, what on earth are we going to have to deal with? I mean, the thoughts of people getting on buses. My husband's a bus driver, and so all of them, you know, getting on the bus, and you know, they were carrying knives. I mean, it's horrifying to think. You know, this is Anfield Lane and standing in concert. You never would have thought that you would hear such a thing, well, especially not Anfield Lane. It's just frightening.
Yeah. Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes, Daniel.
Yeah, definitely look at something. I know we had a community safety, safer standing task group a few years ago now, where we brought our community safety and our children, people and families priorities together for a sort of joint action. I think you guys also had a community safety task group at the same time, or a work group, I should say. So we wanted to avoid that duplication, not stretch the police. So it didn't make sense to have two separate groups running. But if we want to do something jointly, I'll definitely explore that and speak to the police. Because again, we're just getting that level of resource at meetings, 10 town council meetings, 10-hour meetings, which is getting a bit too diluted. So, but yeah, I'll definitely look at that.
All right, thank you very much. Right, Billy.
Yeah, I was talking to a sergeant yesterday. So after our AAPs, and we said look at the sergeant from the phone.
Right.
And I've asked them about drones. You know, you talk about the budget and using the money properly. The drones they bought can only be used when there's no moisture in the air. So if it's damp, you can't use them. So if you're going to get them to look at the drones, look properly. Otherwise, you're wasting your money. Because the last one is all no good.
Yes, well,
I think that's a really good conversation.
When we're buying.
I think that's brought out a really good conversation and really got people talking about it and how we're going to have to work as a unitary here to try and resolve. And it's about supporting the different agencies as well. We're all quick to complain about the different agencies, but actually we all need to support and work together on this. So there's fewer different options. Daniel and me can work together. Jeanette, we can have a workshop and let's see where we go.
Yes, Daniel, this is going to bring this one to a close, I think.
Just obviously alarmed by Bill's comments. So the EP funded those drones this time. So they got the 2 police officers trained up to become obviously bona fide pilots. There's a lead, the Durham Constabulary, who I think she called Amber Dolby. So I'll be speaking to Amber Dolby, I'll be speaking to officers and finding out what's going on. Because we've had some good results as well in relation to the drones.
It's down, you can't buy it.
Yeah. So I'll find out more information about that.
The district side.
Can you just feed that back to Dan when you do?
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Right. Right, everybody, thanks for your input, everybody. Neighbourhood wardens, this is James and Paul.
Yeah.
James, are you gonna?
Yeah, just quickly, obviously thank you, Paul, for coming, going so nice about back. So his intolerance levels aren't great, and the police aren't going to send the drones up if there's a problem. So basically, councillors will be aware that we have a contract with the neighbourhood wardens. I'm not asking you to make decisions tonight. I'm not even asking you to get into discussions tonight about whether you're going to continue with that, but please be aware that that actually is, in the distance, and we will have to think about that come April 2024. So you need to consider it for budget setting. Basically, I wanted to make you aware of that. Obviously, I've asked Paul to come along tonight, just so if we've got any questions about neighbourhood wardens in general, then Paul's here tonight. I mean, obviously, if you do have any, I hope you have come and spoke to me by now if you had any issues with the town council neighbourhood wardens, but in general as a service, Paul's agreed to come along tonight if there's any burning questions that you do have, and then we can start considering these and going away and thinking about things about how we want to go in the future. What I would say is, though, I mean, that's come straight after item 11, which is perhaps quite appropriate, really, isn't it? So, yeah, if there is any questions, please feel free to either aim at myself or Paul. And if Paul can't answer, please give him the ability to go away and he'll come back to you. That's okay.
Well, you've all seen the report, haven't you, that the neighbourhood wardens put in. So, Paul, do you?
So the 2 lads that use guns, since I took over the coordinator role about a year ago now, I changed the way the report was done, because I think they just got sort of facts and figures previously, and I think photos telling you a much bigger story. And they've been heavily involved in the in blue events for the last few years now, massively so, and to get into the schools and centres and everywhere else. So we do, and that's kind of extra to what neighbourhood wardens do. We would have a separate team within DCC called the Civil Crime Team that would do that. So they do that, so they do it really well, I think. The budget, the contract's due in April, which is why James and Russ is coming along now, so you can start thinking about it. But I think I've been thrown under the bus because you just talked about the Civic Hall, and I know you've got pressures there, you've got the allotments stuff that's going on that I'm not involved with. I don't know what's going to come from that. But it's basically, if you've got any questions about what these 2 lads do for you now, and by the way, we have another 4 PCC neighbourhood wardens that cover Stanley as well. We run 2 shifts in there, so there's 2 on each shift that are in Stanley as well. And when there's issues that happen, like the weekend and the weekend before, where one of our wardens was assaulted, by the way, in Stanley, we will pull wardens in from other areas to try and assist with the police and disperse orders and things like that. So the issue, if you want, I'm going to digress a little bit here, but I know there was a photograph placed on Facebook with 2 kids waving knives around with a tagline in Stanley. It's a fake photograph. It's from a news story 3 or 4 years ago down the country, and they've just taken it off. And I know that got banded around quite a lot, and a few people were worried about that. It was fake. They were just putting it out there to raise a profile, I suppose. But yes, it was a bit naughty. Not gonna lie, and it's rival schools that are
organising fights via Facebook and social media, in his family and in concert as well. That's kind of thinking of the main area at the moment. If it's anything like they used to do a thing called Where's My Sesh, for the kids to meet up and drink. And and I'm talking hundreds of kids at a time would meet up in certain areas around the county. And they all got this app on the phones to arrange this, and it's a similar thing. They were arranging a fight because they just come back to school, and it's new groups that are coming in. And unfortunately, it seems to be a trend that year on year these fights get a little bit more violent. And yeah, so one of my wardens was assaulted outside of McDonald's last weekend. But yeah, so the wardens, I know a lot of you knows and know what the wardens do. Some of you, I don't know if you may not know, but we deal with everything. From a neighbourhood warden side of things, the only wardens we can use them more for education and for community work and things like that. From the neighbourhood wardens, they are also trained to do everything a neighbourhood warden would do, which is dealing with everything from stray dogs, dog collar, antisocial behaviour, abandoned vehicles, issuing £6 notices, right the way through to also the tethered horses, which is a nightmare. I know I hate horses, man, frankly. So yeah, so standing, thanks to your good selves, does have that little bit extra cover. And it's, as I say, in my opinion, it has worked well over the years. But I understand the financial pressures you may be under. So whatever you decide. And by the way, if you want to change how they work, this is your times now for discussing that. And if you do want to continue with some service, there is obviously scope for you changing kind of what you want them to do. And give you some ideas. But any questions you want to ask me about don't ask us about that one cross or anything because that's
But if you've got questions tonight and you think of something, now's the time to either email Paul or email me to ask Paul or vice versa. Do you see what I mean? And then so we can get you that information if you are starting to think about it, because we do need to start thinking about it.
Good. Well, thank you for the information that we've got anyway.
Sorry, there was a couple of months whilst I was in hospital where you didn't get them, but yeah, they did go. But like I've always said, if anyone wants to come and discuss the neighbourhood wardens members, just all you have to do, make an appointment, and I will come to you, or you can come to me.
Just with that report, the normal wardens do a report as well, and I know that goes to all the county councillors. I think it goes to some of the town councillors as well. But if you all wanted to say that as well, we can arrange for you to get that straight out as well. No problem.
Yes, thank you very much. Anyone got any burning questions they would like to ask? No. You probably get a flurry of emails when everybody's had a think about it.
Think on that.
What we just show, I really want to say, obviously, Paul touched on our neighbourhood wardens. They go out and do a lot of community work, they work at school, community groups. See a lot of people who don't fully understand what England is about. It's not just about flowers, it's about engaging with people. We talked a lot tonight about crime and problems. But actually, because of the two neighbourhood wardens, we've actually now got 36 partners that are on board with us and working with us through in blue. And perhaps they don't realise this, but they're actually working with the neighbourhood wardens who can actually talk to them about crime and problems like that. So, the town council, any doubt about whether we're being effective in terms of trying to reduce antisocial behaviour, actually we're doing it in quite a sly way, and actually in a way that people don't think it's all about enforcement. We're doing it through other means, and it's obviously it's through partnership work we've got to achieve that.
Can I just ask, do the wardens that we have at Stanley, do they have the power to hand out fines?
Yes.
All of them.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why you see the report. The statistics on all of the reports say how many expenses they've issued.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's it.
So in August they issued one fixed
To be fair to the lads, they do a lot more of the community. The kind of the nice side of the wardens for Stanley, and our DCC is kind of the ones to do the enforcement.
But if they needed to,
and they have done,
Thank you. So that, Okay, can we move on? We don't have to make any decisions on that, just discussion later, I think.
Procedures 101.
Right, the next bit is item 13, accounts for payment and bank reconciliation, July and August. Yes, July and August. All the attachments are there. And to consider the cash information to approve the payment of accounts and note bank reconciliation for both July and August. So are we okay with that? I have to say, I hope everybody's ready. Yes, I know, but that case, can we agree? Okay, do we need, just to approve and note? Okay. Right. Annual governance accountability return, which is requested to note the attachment L. Is requested to note the annual governance and accountability return for the period 2022-23 and audited AGOR 2022-23. Okay, that's this one. Right. To note.
Oh, you need that set this.
Ah. Right. I've got this one, redundant, report. Yeah, I've got an agreement, yeah.
I want to get that one down for the record if that's like.
Right, then can we have a proposal and a second for that? Are you proposing that? Anybody second it? Thank you, Sam. And can I have a show of hands of any agreements? Anybody not in agreement? Thank you. So you can put that down as a issue, yeah. I just thought it was a little, but never mind. Internal audit plan, this is item. Yeah, M. Yeah. It's attachments M, and then there are N, O, P, and Q after that, which are accounts received, welfare assistance funding, accounts payable, and payroll.
If members do have any questions on that, then
yeah,
I'm happy to kind of just like shelf that and take the questions back to Anne. You would be the first to answer them.
Yes.
Or you can prove it.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions, guys? If not, if you have, as you say, as James says, we'll note them and we can come back to them later.
It's basically setting up the school for the loans.
It is, it's just a terms of reference to the audit, basically audit. Okay, so we're all right with that one then, yeah, we don't have to. So, I'm down to item 16, policies and procedures. We had a policy working group on the 12th of September. Yeah. And it was all of these policies here have been attached for approval. I don't know whether everybody's read all of the policies or not, but if you have to go away and do it now. It's Constitution and Committee Terms of Reference, Scheme of Delegation, Standing Orders, Financial Regs, Members Officer Protocol, Communications Policy, Redundancy Policy and Procedure. The ones in the pack here, and now being submitted. So they've been submitted for approval. So we need to have approval on this. Does anybody have any questions? Not sure. Forrester. Yes, Ellen.
Just for me, who obviously wasn't at the meeting and hasn't necessarily got a copy of all of the previous, it would have been nice to know what the changes were.
Right. Right now, John, you put in a question, did you not?
I put in
the statement, yeah.
And the statement says that the policies that you accepted at the AGM,
yes,
are not then re-accepted in a period of 6 months unless because you would need then 11 names to bring something back to
Yes.
council.
Yeah.
So you didn't need to do some of them
No, but
because you'd already accepted
already
them.
accepted.
So you didn't, you don't actually need
Yeah.
to accept those again. You just accept the ones that you didn't accept.
So in that case, that was, yes, and that was noted at the meeting, yeah, and minuted. And so the ones that were need to be accepted was the officer members protocol, which is a new policy. And that one is, I can find it. You, yeah. I mean, it's not exactly a lengthy document. It is the only one we've got right second.
No.
Yes, yeah. So in that case, have you all read it? Has anyone got any questions? Oh, sorry, Sam, was your, yeah.
So it's not related to the recruitment ones, actually relating to the financial regs one. I was having a look through in the section on procurement. Correct me if I'm wrong, there seems to be a mistake when it's talking about contracts. There's a section where it talks about contracts over £20,000 and 60,000, and the next section, the heading there is contract between 5,000 and 25,000. In the section that talks about contracts, 20,000. So there is actually a mistake in the wording of that one.
Yes, right.
When was that? So sorry.
It's in the financial regulation. It's on page 10.
Yeah.
It's not about contract. It's
Yeah.
I and J.
I enjoy
Yeah,
it.
there. So basically, yeah,
And I've got another one as well.
it's on the same one.
No, it's in
Because I'm just looking at this and I don't know whether this has been changed or whether it's.
That's what I'm saying. We should have had it should have been highlighted the bits that were changed so that we could actually.
Yes.
It was reviewed.
Yeah.
At the working group, so if
Yeah.
there was changes being made, we would change it, but this is what we're saying.
Yeah.
If there is no changes being made,
I
then.
don't know what's been changed.
Can we, in that case then, can we just put this back on the agenda for the next meeting? Because we need to check, because I had a copy that was highlighted, but Gordon's copy wasn't highlighted, it was just printed out. I don't think any of the other copies were. So I think we need to go back and just check that. Just check the.
You want a list of what will change?
Yes, yes. And then, so the other ones are okay. Oh, you've got, no, you haven't, you've got another one, haven't you?
in redundancy policy and procedure,
Right,
in section 2 under redundancy, clauses A and B are the same. I think you would.
Oh. right.
Anyone's already on.
So that is, sorry, Gage.
That's in the redundancy policy and
Yeah.
under redundancy. It's section 1.
Oh.
It's just the same place.
Yes. So that just needs to be there. So it's got A and B, it's not A and B, that needs to be numbered. Yeah.
Simple thing. Well,
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so again, that's it, just taking one out, it doesn't need to come back that one. Right.
So
So,
we're bringing them back then.
yeah, just the financial rec one and the
Yeah.
ones to be altered.
And the one, and obviously the things
Yeah.
that chat. But that thing, when we bring that back, when we get through.
We'll just, when you bring, it's brought back, we just approve all of them at that point. Well, the ones that we need to approve, because we don't, yeah.
Don't like to approve
That's
this,
what we
you've
need
done
to
it.
approve. Right. Right, where we've got now, comms, oh, do we need-
You could,
you can do that one, James?
obviously, it is something that we'll be discussing with officers, with the input of some members. It is something that we want to start looking at in the future, council. We need to improve our comms. We discussed a bit about that tonight. And we will get more into depth about it, but and we need to recognise that we're going to need to attach a decent budget to our comms plan, our comms. And if we don't get it right, then we might as well not follow what we're doing, because unfortunately now, people only hear about it if we get it right. So it is really important that we do that, and we need to start thinking about having a strategy in place to get the comms. So we need to know what our councils need to recognise that we need to start knowing what our direction is, officers as well, because we can't build a comms plan for you unless we know exactly what your priorities are and whatnot. So this all links back into what our budget availability is going to be, which all links back into certain answers that we get from Durham Council. So we can set those priorities, we can set budgets, and then we can build a really good comms plan. But what I'm saying, obviously, it needs to be said here, when we do that, we need to attach, I think everyone would agree, we need to attach a decent sizable budget to our comms plan and really start showing off what we do, but also to help us work with partners as well. So just be aware that officers are working on that in the background, so that we get to a point where we can push the button and start really going for it. In terms of what we're doing at the minute, girls are really good at each week now. They're coming together with a diary of things they're going to start. They're starting to release and whatnot. But if you can imagine what it's like for us for the whole of the year, if we actually know what our priorities are, we know what we're doing, and we've actually got some budget attached to that, then we can really start going with that. So the comms. Yeah, that's just a quick update, but it's actually going to be a really, really, really important bit of work moving into the future for this town council. If we get that right, we're halfway there. So just be aware of that and the importance of us setting our priorities quite quickly. All right, to give us the direction to build that.
Am I right in thinking we'll go to have seminar or something like that? A delay to days, yeah.
And I think that will come out of the work. So
fine. Yeah. How about you again, James? This number 18, transfer of allotments to Stanley Town Council. That's what you good people have been sitting there waiting for, hasn't it? Right.
To be brutally honest, there isn't actually anything we can update you with. The town council haven't taken town council haven't taken control of the allotments yet. We are obviously in discussions and talks with Durham Council. The town council is aware that it is something that is most likely to come our way, and we're accepting that it probably will come our way. When that happens, then the town council will then start looking at how we manage it. There's different styles of managing allotments, and I know that's probably one of the reasons why Bala's here tonight. He'd want to find out how the town council manage allotments when we get the allotments. We can't do that until we actually get that, but we have set up meetings with Durham County Council for the future. And when that does happen, we will look at all the different options, and when we do, we will relay that to the public, and we will consult the public about that. We are also putting pressure on the officers at Durham County Council that are passing the allotments to us, that we need to know about what our bills are going to be for the civic hall, because the allotments is going to be quite an expensive priority for the town council, and for us to set any budget line for the allotments, we need to know what our budget looks like. So everything's kind of linked up and everything kind of goes around in a circle. But for the members of the public here, I can assure you, when we do know a date or a timeline for that coming over, we will be looking at all the different types of management techniques for allotments, and we will consult with the public about that and take on board their thoughts. That mean you're happy with that? Yeah.
Thank you. Doesn't matter what you turn it out of copy, I think that's the one we've got now. That's just me personally. Right, thanks very much for that, James. Right, training opportunities, an online training opportunity, online event. Really, the new model finance regulations. Do you know anything about that? Is that just one that?
It is something that's come up, and any member can be a part of that. I would recommend certain members, go on it. And if they are interested, are involved in the finances, then put yourself forward to get on that online event. If you are interested in it, Diane know, probably be the best person to let know rather than me, because I'm not going to be in for a while. But yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, apart from date, time, and venue of next meeting, which is Tuesday, the 24th of October at Craghead at 6:30 from Craghead Village Hall. there'll be surgery again at 5:30, if that's all right. Carol, if you can. We're gonna, yeah. Okay. Thank you for your attendance, ladies and gentlemen, and don't any of the councillors run away, because we've got a part B. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for a good and informative meeting.
Oh, good, thank you very much.
Really.
If peace. So.
You need to do the put that text.
Oh.